I was sitting in my leave-writing room one afternoon when I saw her again, Karen, the self-appointed neighborhood watch. From the corner of my eye, I could see her peeking through her lace curtains, holding a glass of wine in one hand and binoculars in the other. I knew this wasn't going to be good. But this time, it wasn't my unkempt lawn or my late-night trash run that was going to be her issue. No, this time, it was something even stranger. In my front yard, sitting like a rock in a quiet stream, was my father, Earl. He was just sitting there, completely still, with a shovel across his lap. And let me tell you, it wasn't the most threatening thing you'd ever see. My dad was 72, wore mismatched socks, and often had a calm smile on his face. But to Karen? Well, she had already concocted her own story in her head. Something about him just sitting there. She must have thought he was planning to bury something. Or someone. It wasn't long before she dialed 911, whispering frantically into the phone, her voice shaking, not from fear, but from pure, unadulterated drama. There's a man, sitting in the yard with a shovel, just sitting there. Like he's going to bury someone. I rolled my eyes. Karen had called the cops over less before. But this was ridiculous. She went on, adding, he just blinked. Slowly. You don't trust slow blinkers, right? I couldn't help but chuckle, but I knew what was coming next. My phone rang, and it was my dad's name on the caller ID. Mike, I need you to come by. Karen's called the cops again. I had no idea what was going to happen next, but I knew the drill. So, I threw on my sheriff's uniform, grabbed a burrito from the gas station, and drove over. When I pulled up to Primrose Lane, I saw it just as Karen had described. Earl, sitting in his faded recliner, shovel across his lap like a king with a scepter. He wasn't threatening anyone, just sitting there, sipping his sweet tea. The dramatic tension Karen had been imagining? Nowhere to be found. I got out of the cruiser, leaned against the door, and stared at the scene for a moment. And then, loud enough for Karen to hear, I said, Karen, that's my dad. I saw her reaction from across the street. She dropped her wine glass, and I couldn't help but smile. She was caught. But I wasn't done. I walked over to Earl, who was still calmly looking up at the sky, as if waiting for some cosmic answer. Howdy, Mike, he said, nodding slowly. Nice day, huh? Yeah, Dad, I said, shaking my head. What are you doing? Thinking, he said, tapping the shovel like it was some sacred relic. Been a lot of noise in my head lately. Thought I'd sit with it. Why the shovel? I asked. Helps me dig deeper thoughts. He replied with a grin, clearly delighted with his own words. Also keeps the hoe folks from bothering me. You'd be amazed how quiet people get when you hold a shovel and smile. That's my dad, eccentric, yes, but always one to make light of any situation. Karen, on the other hand, wasn't having any of it. She stormed out of her house in pink slippers and a cardigan that looked like it was knitted from passive-aggressive thoughts. Mike, she started, he's threatening the peace of the neighborhood. Just sitting there for hours. I raised an eyebrow. You timed me, Earl corrected. I was out here for 20 minutes, not hours. Karen jabbed her finger at the shovel. This is clearly unstable behavior. He's scaring the children. I sighed. Karen, you live next to a public library and a bakery. The most danger you've faced is gluten. That stopped her in her tracks. But she wasn't backing down. He's unwell. Who just sits with a shovel? Men who have something to think about, Earl said, standing tall, all 6'2" of him. Sometimes you sit with a shovel to remind yourself you're not burying the past. You're just getting ready to unearth it. Now, Karen blinked. What does that mean? Earl, in his calm, almost poetic way, leaned in closer. It means, Karen, that not everything still buried is meant to stay that way. Karen stumbled back a step, her face pale. So you are digging something up? Earl leaned in even closer. That depends on if you believe in curses. Karen took 3 steps back and spun around. Mike, I demand a wellness check. I had to keep my composure, but even I was getting uneasy. Earl had always been a man of many layers, and now there was something beneath his calm demeanor I couldn't ignore. But Karen wasn't stopping there. She was going to keep pushing. So, I did what I had to do. Karen, my dad's odd, but he's harmless. He's been odd for years. He names his bird feeders. Last year, he even hosted a funeral for a dead raccoon and made everyone wear black. Karen was stunned into silence for a moment, then turned her glare back at Earl. You don't think this is suspicious? Sitting out here with a shovel? Honestly, this is mild for him, I said, shrugging. But whatever you think, just let him be. As I drove away, something still lingered in the back of my mind. That glint in Earl's eye, the mixture of mischief and something deeper. He wasn't just being theatrical. There was purpose behind all of this. The next day, Karen was back, her suspicion growing. This time, she was taking notes on everything Earl did, documenting his every move with a camera. She even got Benny, a local high school kid, to help her track Earl's actions. Convoyne said that there was something more to the shovel than met the eye. She was determined to find out what he was burying or digging up. One night, after hours of watching, Karen finally noticed a disturbed patch of dirt in Earl's backyard. She crept over with Benny, and they uncovered a tin box. Inside, there were letters, yellowed and fragile, bound with twine. Karen began to read one, gasping as she read the name Vincent. That name meant nothing to Karen, but everything to me. It was my brother, the one I never knew I had. Earl had kept this secret hidden for so long, burying it in a way only he could. And now, it was coming to the surface. The next morning, I confronted Earl, showing him the letters. After a long silence, he explained. Vincent, my half-brother, had been a part of my father's life long before I was born. But things had fallen apart between them, and Earl never spoke of him again. That's when I realized Earl wasn't just eccentric. He was a man running from his past. And the shovel? It wasn't about burying secrets. It was about finally confronting them. But the story didn't end there. Later that day, a package arrived for Earl, no return address. Just the word Dad written on it. Inside was a photo of Vincent. After all these years, he was coming back into Earl's life. With Vincent's return, Earl had to face everything he had buried for so long. It wasn't just a family secret. It was a life he had left behind. As we sat around the table together, the weight of all those lost years hung in the air. Earl wasn't just preparing to face his son Ogden, he was finally preparing to face himself. And as the sun set that night, I knew one thing for sure: sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can bury is the truth. What do you think? Do you believe that sometimes we bury parts of ourselves that are harder to face? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to share your thoughts.